Hey everyone, welcome to today's masterclass that we're going to be putting on. My name is Madison, and we are going to be diving into basically topics on functional health. We're going to be covering a ton of great information to help you move away from chronic pains and injuries to rebalancing your body and moving in full ranges of stable motion again so that you can get back to the active lifestyle that you love. So whether you're an athlete and you're trying to stay healthy season in and season out, or whether you're a weekend warrior in your 60s and you're looking to enjoy your sport for the next several decades, or whether you're just a generally active individual who wants to feel good and get in better shape, you've come to the right place. I'm excited to have you guys here. So I wanted to hop on real quick, a little bit early. We're going to be starting in just a couple of minutes, but want to give everyone a couple minutes to get logged in here. We have a few hundred people that are going to be on this today. And I wanted to give you guys, show you guys what to expect so you get the most out of this. So also, I'm getting a few people saying hi right here in the chat. Hi Laura, how's it going, James? I see you there, Robert, good to see you. How's it going, Carrie? Hello there, Mary, sorry, I didn't mean to put your name. How's it going, Jim? Good to see you. All right, guys, I'm glad you guys are pumped too. So anyway, what to expect out of this. So like I said, we're going to be covering a lot of awesome topics on functional health. We've been doing this webinar/masterclass for a while now. We've gotten a ton of amazing feedback on it, and because of it, we've really perfected this. So hence why I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this content today. So first and foremost, I want to let you guys know my biggest recommendations is, if you can, block out your next hour. If you haven't already, try to actually save this next hour for yourself, because this is going to be amazing information to get you moving in the right direction toward your functional health goals. It's actually going to be quite practical. We're going to give you guys free resources to take advantage of. And so because of that, gift this hour to you. It's going to be worth it, I promise. And then with that, I highly recommend trying to turn off distractions. So if possible, try not to watch this on a phone, put it on a computer or maybe a tablet. The phone can get a few extra messages and things to distract you. If that's your best medium to watch this, you're more than welcome to. Just my personal recommendation. And get something to take some notes on, whether that's something to type into or an actual old school notepad like myself to write on. Grab something, because we're going to be covering a lot of new information, some stuff you guys might be familiar with, but not quite the way that we teach it. And we're going to be busting some myths and really trying to reshape kind of our whole perspective on what it takes to get our bodies truly, functionally, soundly healthy. So those are my biggest recommendations. Also, I want to let you guys know the chat box that you guys have been using to say hi. I want you to use it. So if any questions come up, please type them out in that chat box. Your questions are going to get emailed to myself and my team, Gordon, who's kind of in the background helping me out with this presentation today. We're going to be fielding those questions, and at the end of this 60-minute presentation or so, we're going to be doing some Q&A. So we've already grabbed some questions that quite a few of you guys have been asking through email, and we already embedded them into the end of this presentation. So we'll be covering those as is, and if we don't get to your question, if we don't have time for it, like I said, we'll get them in email, and so worst case scenario, we'll respond to you guys via email and get back to you. So no matter what, we will answer your questions. It's just if we don't get to it on this specific masterclass, we will in the near future. And that same goes for anyone who's watching the replay of this. Still, please use that chat box. Like I said, your questions will get emailed to us, and if it isn't covered in the webinar, then we will send you an email back and get back to you as quick as humanly possible. So by now, I think we've given everyone enough time to kind of log in and get settled. Oh, shoot, I realize I haven't had my mic on this whole time, so if I sound a little echoey right now, I apologize, but I'm going to turn on my mic and share my presentation with you guys, and we'll get started right about now. All right, there we go. All right, guys, welcome to our masterclass, the 3 steps to rehab and prevent injuries while maximizing your fitness and health in just 15 minutes a day. So we're about to jump into the meat and potatoes of this masterclass in just a second, but real quick, I want to establish who this is for so you know you're in the right spot. This is for any competitive athlete or generally active individual that wants to fully recover from, plus prevent injuries and chronic pain. So maybe you're just dealing with some significant stiffness and lack of mobility and imbalances from sitting and driving for the last several years, and it's impacting your athletic performance. Or maybe you're really trying to recover from a serious injury like degenerative disc disease or ligament tears or dislocations or pinched nerves. You've come to the right spot. We're going to help you balance out your body to do those things. You could be here because you want to gain complete control of your health and your fitness. So maybe you're into longevity and you're looking at the next several decades and you want to live as active and fulfilling of a life as you can. But you're sick of relying on a third party to feel good. So maybe you've been to a few chiropractors here and there, or you've seen a few physios, or maybe tried one or two injections or medications and probably spent a pretty penny and some time and energy on these things, am I right? But yet you still feel like you are a far cry from being able to be in control of your own health. Well, we're going to give you those tools in this webinar, so welcome. You could be here because you want to excel and enjoy in the activities that you love with the people that you love for life. So what kind of a group do we have today? How many here are runners or triathletes and you want to be able to run better and with a better running gait and be able to do it as frequently and as often as you want? Or how many here play tennis or volleyball or a certain sport that you want to enjoy and excel in? Or how many people here just want to be generally active? You're an outdoorsy, you like to hike, you like to go for walks with the dogs, you want to play with the grandkids on the ground and roll around and that kind of stuff. What kind of demographic do we have here? I see Greg and Mark and Carrie are all here for running. I see Marie is here as a triathlete. Awesome, great job, guys. I'm welcome here. I see a couple of tennis. I don't see any I saw basketball in there, but it was scrolled a little bit too fast. I'm seeing a few people just into fitness. I see you there. Claire, you're trying to get healthy enough for your boot camps, your HIIT classes. That's awesome. I see Marianne and Dawn are here more for longevity and just being active and being able to hike as much as they want. That's great. So good, welcome. You guys are in the right spot. And finally, ultimately, you're here for functional health. So having a good blood panel and having great blood pressure readings or resting heart rate, those are all awesome. But we want to actually have functional health in the sense that every morning you wake up and you feel you have great energy, your body's balanced, it's moving in full ranges of stable motion, and it's ready to do whatever you want it to that day. That's functional health, and that's why you're here and you've come to the right spot. So real quick, who is this guy so you know who's talking to you on this masterclass? Well, my name is Madison Dubroff, and for actually closer to 12 years now, my team and I have impacted the lives of over 2,000 clients. And I personally am a corrective exercise specialist through National Academy of Sports Medicine and a functional movement coach through Greg Cook's FMS and Kelly Strett's Mobility WOD. And if you're kind of in and around the functional health and wellness and fitness space, you probably recognize those names, but if not, no worries. But I'm the founder of Health by Ratio, and we are an online program with a team of functional physical therapists, corrective exercise specialists, and nutritionists that we take a holistic approach in helping our clients fully recover from injuries and then pursue their functional fitness and health goals. And if you're wondering, how do they work with people's injuries and pains online? Well, we're going to kind of get into it, but we do it in a very successful and very unique way, and I'm going to break down the secrets we've learned to help you get functionally healthy yourself. And personally, I'm also a former collegiate athlete and current different weekend warrior. So I've been through the gambit. I'll touch on this in a little bit, but I've had a ton of past injuries, and I've been there, done that. And now I've been able to correct my own body, rebalance it out, and I'm able to push myself in all ways that I want on a weekly basis and feel healthy all the time. So my big promise to you today is to teach you how to take control of that health by becoming pain and injury free, by realigning and reconditioning the body back to full ranges of stable motion so that you feel balanced, fit, and athletically sound. Oh yeah, and really quick guys, stay with me until the end of this masterclass. We have 2 free amazing bonuses that we're gonna give away at the end to make this thing the greatest gift you've ever given yourself. I'm serious with this. Stay with me until the end. I love this picture of this cat. This is not going to be another sales webinar. I'm not going to try to upsell you on something. We're literally here to just give you some awesome information and then give you the tools and resources that you can take and implement this stuff into your actual life. So this isn't going to be just another webinar that you watch and forget about the next day. You're actually going to be able to use this information. So let's get rolling. So a quick overview of what we're going to be covering in terms of our 3 secrets to get your control over your health and fitness is secret number 1 is your body tells you everything you need to know to keep it healthy. And if you can understand what it tells you on a daily basis, you can achieve all of your health and fitness goals. And we could have chosen really any of our clients as an example for this first secret, but Mike is one of my favorite stories on this. He's from Washington, and he was in his late 40s when he started working with us, and he was a triathlete whose lifelong dream was to do an Ironman. And he had failed 3 times prior, where he signed up for an Ironman, trained for almost a year, and then had to bail out at the last second because of injuries and chronic pains. And he was trying to stretch and foam roll and do maintenance work from some programs that he had picked up online, but it wasn't until we taught him how to listen to what his body was telling him, how it was moving, and giving him the exact program that his body needed, where he was finally able to push through that training phase, and he got to complete his Ironman right before he turned 50. It's pretty awesome, right? That's the power of what you can do when you actually learn to listen to what your body's telling you every day. And then the second secret is you can do the manual work yourself. You don't need to spend an arm and a leg on regular massages and chiropractors or physical therapy, copays and injections. Now, I don't want to say all of these treatments are bad. Like, I occasionally get a good massage, or I like to get adjusted at once in a blue moon, but it's not something that we need to rely on day in and day out. And a case study for this was Casey, who was a professional tennis player from Pennsylvania. She was relying on all kinds of third-party treatments, massage and manual stretching and rolfing and a lot more. But then we taught her how if she knows how to release her own knots herself, she can stay in control of her mobility on a regular basis. And she went from being on the verge of retirement. Right when she came to us, she was just about a month away from saying, I'm hanging up the racket, to not only playing the next season, but excelling it with her speed and agility, and ended up playing another 3 years after that. How awesome is that? And then the third secret is it's all about retraining your body to functionally move again. So basically, we're trying to actually recondition and impact the central nervous system to reteach your body how to functionally move and balance and stabilize itself. Now, we're going to be touching on all this stuff much more thoroughly in a second, but just to give you a heads up, secret number 3 is the most important step. So we're going to be really taking a deep dive on this one. And an example of someone who got some really good success from this was Maura from Illinois, who's a runner, and she was into marathons and 10Ks and just consistently going to races, but she had to stop for years due to constant ankle, knee, shoulder, and neck pains. But then we taught her how to functionally correct her alignment and improve her running gait, and her injury stopped, and she was able to get back into running after not being able to run for 5 years. That's pretty awesome, right? So we just went over the 3 secrets that we're going to be covering on how to get to functional health. Let's establish why 90% of people out there aren't successful in their functional health goals. And reason number 1 is we rely on others to fix us. And according to Peter Gosku of the Gosku method, his quote is, "Our body is a self-service machine. You have to take care of it. You can't rely on somebody else to change your oil, so to speak." The other reason is we only treat the pain in injured areas themselves. So we're always focusing all of our attention around the pain sites. And I hope you guys haven't been exposed to this, but this is really, really common in general, kind of typical physical therapy, where they treat in and around the injury itself, as opposed to more functional physical therapy that's going to look at the entire body's kinetic chain and all of the factors that are impacting that injury or preventing it from healing. And so a quote from Kelly Starrett, who is a functional physical therapist, is to find out what's impacting the injured and painful site, we need to look above and below. Or we take medications and injections and we just take them like they're candy to mask the pain. But that's like putting a towel over the check engine light on the dashboard and saying that, yeah, our car's fine now. And that's according to Gray Cook of FMS, who's also a functional physical therapist. And then the final reason why 90% aren't successful is that we rarely move in full ranges of motion. Instead, we're locked in certain positions for hours a day. Like maybe we're sitting at a desk or driving or hunched over our phone or on the couch at certain periods of time. And ultimately, movement is really one of the main keys to your body's health. And that's a quote from Katie Bowman, who's a biomechanist who wrote the book Move Your DNA. So my question for you is, how do these apply to you? Where might you have fallen into this trap that's not necessarily your fault, it's just what's so commonly taught to us, and it can give you just a little bit of insights on, oh yeah, that's why I haven't been able to achieve my goals. Now, if you saw those things and you've been hearing me talk about the 3 secrets and you're thinking like, all this sounds cool, these 3 secrets, but I don't know if I can do this. I've had too many injuries, or I've always been flat-footed or had this bad back, or I've never been flexible. I'm always locked up and tight. That's not in my vocabulary. Or I feel like I might hurt myself again. Don't worry. I understand. I've been there and done that. And like I said, I touched on this earlier, I am not special. I've had tons of injuries in my past. I had tears in my MCL and my ACL and meniscus. I had multiple severe ankle sprains and plantar fasciitis. Hamstring pulls, several of them, all concurrently consecutively in a row. Chronic lumbar and sciatic pain for years, pectoral tear and rotator cuff injuries, major neck injury, messing with a lot of nerves in and around my neck, and concussion. So if I ramble a little bit or lose my train of thought, we can blame it on the concussions. But I'm not special. I dealt with a laundry list of things before, and I felt the same way. But then I learned the 3 secrets, and I actually gained control of my health, like so many of our clients have. So secret number 1, analyze your body. Your body tells you everything it needs, no doctors needed. So first, let's really quickly establish, how does the body actually communicate to us? What does it tell us on a daily basis? Well, for your physical health and fitness, obviously it'd be different if we're talking about how does it communicate to us nutritionally or with regards to like how your sleep's impacting you or stress levels, that kind of stuff. But for your physical health and body, one is range of motion. Are you tight or are you feeling really, really mobile and with great range of motion? Are you balanced or in symmetrical and stable? Or are you feeling asymmetrical, or you favor one side versus the other? What are your soreness levels like? Are they normal, like you had a good workout, or excessive and lasting for days and weeks on end? And what's your recurring joint and tissue health like? Are you dealing with injuries and pains and tweaks and strains and setbacks? Or are you generally staying healthy? These are all simple ways that your body communicates to you, but if you understand how to read them, it goes a really long way, right? I think we've all kind of, we all understand this. We all get these messages. We just need to understand how to actually interpret them, right? So an example of somebody who had to learn how to interpret what their body needed was Sydney from Toronto. She was a big proponent of Pilates. Now, she suffers from a disease called EDS, and for her, there's a couple of different types of EDS, but she had her show up in a bunch of daily micro dislocations. That sounds brutal, right? She could be doing a movement, and at any given time, she would experience a dislocation in her SI joint, in her vertebrae, in her spine, in and around the hips, in her ankles, knees. It was really brutal to live with, and she had to kind of deal with these setbacks
on a weekly basis, hence why she was always going back to her chiropractor to get her skeletal system back into alignment. Well, we realized that even though Pilates is a really great form of exercise that's low impact for most people, for her, it was pulling her directly further out of alignment. The way her hips were rotated, doing things like pikes and planks and V-holds were really straining her in the wrong direction, and it was part of the reason why she was suffering from her micro dislocations as frequently as she was. So after we changed up her program and rebalanced out her body, she was seeing her symptoms essentially disappear with her EDS that had been impacting her for her essentially her entire adult life. So she was able to gain control of her health this way. And that's amazing, right? Like, imagine being in that situation, dealing with dislocations on a regular basis, to all of a sudden feeling stable and being able to get to the level of fitness and active lifestyle that you want. So your body's movement and posture patterns explain why microtraumas lead to excessive soreness and pains, which ultimately stack up to major injuries that occur and linger, kind of prevent you from getting back to health. And this is an image of Kevin Durant, one of the best basketball players in the NBA right now. And you can see this is him taking his free throw shots. You see his knees caving in as well as his feet turning in. He's going into what's called knee valgus. Well, this is a really dangerous thing for that's related to knee, ankle, and hip and back related injuries. And Kevin Durant is as amazing of a player as he is and dominating as he is in the NBA. He's been riddled with injuries. He's had MCL, he just ruptured his Achilles, he's had back and hip problems, and you can see it in his own functional movement patterns every time he takes a free throw, let alone how he moves throughout all of the rest of his game. So the major movement patterns that we study in Health by Ratio and many other functional programs like this is we want to pay attention to the squat. We want to see how your body naturally squats, because this is what you do every time you sit down, stand up, you jump. It impacts you how you lift things off the ground. It's impactful in your walking and running gait. It's all over the place. The lunge, which is more unilateral, so we get to see one side versus the other, and this is obviously kneeling down, lifting things off the ground in a staggered stance. It impacts your walking and running gait directly. If you're an athlete, stopping and changing direction, you are often going into a lunge to explode out of it, so that's why we care about this movement pattern. The hip hinge, which is bending over to grab something over the sink or cooking, or bending down to pick something up, like lifting things up, like deadlift position, and jumping. All of these things are very, very impactful in these functional movements. And then the hurdle step, which is how you walk, how you run, how you go up and down stairs. These are all of our major movement patterns, and if we can get them functionally sound, then your body's in a really good position. Now, the support structures, the things that impact the squat and that impact the lunge and the hip hinge and the hurdle step, are your various joints. And this is kind of the joint by joint theory made famous by Michael Boyle and Gray Cook. But it's essentially taking a look at your ankles, your knees, your hips, your core/lumbar, then your thoracic spine, your shoulder girdle, and all the way up to your neck, because each of these things essentially impacts almost all of your movement patterns, or at least a very large chunk of them. And in theory, I don't have it really listed on this, but in theory, the joint by joint approach is that in general, it's kind of an every other concept. The ankles should be really mobile versus the knees should be very stable. Then the hips again should be really mobile. Then the core and lumbar should be stable. The thoracic spine should have great mobility. The shoulder girdle should be stable. Then the neck should have good mobility. So it's kind of an every other mobile, stable, mobile, stable. There's overlap between all of them. But I have this image of Robert Griffin III. This is his combine. He was a really high draft pick in the NFL. He was the second overall player taken. He was a quarterback, obviously highly recruited. And this is a freeze frame of him sprinting where if you go from ankle to neck right now, he has all kinds of imbalances, and he was riddled with injuries, everything from knee, like major tears and surgeries, ankle dislocation, shoulder problems, all kinds of stuff. He was barely able to stay on the field. And as he's sprinting here, you see his foot's turned out, his knee is rotated, his hips are out of alignment, his core and thoracic spine are rotated and caving forward. His arms his right arm is rotating inward versus his left arm is trying to get back to straight ahead. His neck is tilted. He's got all kinds of imbalances, and they showed up in his longevity. And when we fail to notice the ways each joint moves together, we miss the root causes for why our joints and tissues are getting injured, or at the very least are failing to repair. So maybe you did have your injury from getting hit by a car or something along those lines, but it's been years and your body hasn't been able to heal itself. Well, the reason for it is because your body's been thrown out of alignment now and you haven't been able to correct those, and so you're staying in those kind of imbalances that are keeping that injury alive. And our bodies start to break down in now random areas due to compensation. So those compensations that are impacting us in one area start trickling up and down the kinetic chain, and that's why we start feeling those, like you had knee problems for the last several years, and now all of a sudden your hip's starting to hurt, and now all of a sudden that shoulder and neck is starting to feel, and it feels random, but ultimately they're all interconnected. So a real quick example, a practical example of how you guys can visualize how we would approach this. So we're going to just take the squat, for example. In an ideal world, you should be able to squat with your arms straight overhead, all the way down past 90 degrees with your feet straight, your knees in line with your feet, your torso relatively upright, and your arms staying completely neutral the whole time without caving forward. And if you are shifting off to one side, or your feet are turning out, or your knees are collapsing in like we saw with Kevin Durant, or we have our shoulders falling forward, or our torso collapses forward, or we're not able to get so low, we want to analyze some of the joints that might be impacting it. So some examples on what we could do is, let's test the ankle mobility. Are we able to get great range of motion through our ankles, or is this something that we're lacking? Well, that could very well impact the depth and fluidness of our squat, especially if we have an imbalance on one side versus the other. Our hip mobility, now we could test this in a multitude of ways, but this is an example of me just doing external hip rotation and seeing what level one leg would be at versus the other, and if there's an imbalance or a lack of mobility in our hips in external rotation. Also, shoulder mobility. Do we have good internal and external rotation on both of our arms, or is there a significant imbalance or tightness that would again be impacting our functional patterns like the squat or the lunge or the hip hinge or that hurdle step? Now, we mentioned Michael D, who completed his Ironman before. Now, just to touch on his case a little bit more, he was dealing with plantar fasciitis, some pretty significant knee pain, and degenerative disc disease. And that was why, if you guys recall, he had to stop his completion of his Ironmans 3 different times before. And when we started working with him, we put him through all dozen plus of our posture and movement analyses that we have our clients do, and what we saw was that his squat, lunge, and hurdle step were all very poor, which then equated to a really poor running gait. And when we kind of dove down into it and got into the nitty-gritty, we saw that his ankle mobility and alignment was really poor and uneven between his right and left legs. His hip mobility was really poor, and again, asymmetrical between one leg and the other. And his core stability was really poor, so he was having very bad support for his lumbar. Then, after 8 weeks of our program, where we created the perfect mobility and stability program to rebalance his body, he had amazing range of motion and stability through all of his major movement patterns. His feet and knees and lumbar felt amazing, and 2 months later, he was actually able to officially complete his Ironman. So he had been training, he started coming up with pains again, was nervous he was going to have to drop out for a 4th time, but was able to reverse course and succeed with his goal. Isn't that awesome? Like, how amazing would it be to be on the verge of quitting your lifelong dream and then finally gain the control of your health that you've been looking for and be able to excel in the thing that you wanted to accomplish? It's pretty cool, right? So I want you guys to ask yourself with this step, have you ever had all of your functional movement and postural patterns analyzed before? My guess is probably not. Maybe a couple of things here and there, but have you ever had somebody functionally analyze your body's movement patterns in all different ways, and then, most importantly, taught you how those imbalances are impacting you and how you can go about correcting them? Now, again, if the answers to these questions are no, or kind of, or sort of, but not really, I didn't really understand it, or it was a couple of things, like my chiropractor analyzed me when I was like sitting in a chair or laying down on a table, but not really in my movement and in my element, that's a good thing. That means that we have something that you haven't tried before that's going to help you get to your goals. Now, secret number 2, which is the mobilization of your body. This is where standard physical therapy, chiropractors, and acupuncture are overrated. I don't want to say they're completely useless. Like I said, there's a time and a place for them, but it's not something that we need to rely on and invest thousands of dollars in every year. You can do it yourself. Now, like I said, we're more than welcome to do these treatments, especially like you want to take some time off and get a massage. That's a great thing. If you just tore your ACL and you need physical therapy on that ACL, yeah, I recommend it. But we've become far too reliant on these procedures, and chronic pain has surpassed costs in cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. According to American Physical Therapy Association, they reported that the increased average cost for individuals in pain versus people that are pain-free is an increase every year in between $4,500 and $9,000. And this was as of 2012. I've seen other studies that range this between $6,000 and $12,000 a year in current added costs for people that are dealing with pain versus not in pain. And so we're relying on these treatments that really aren't getting us to where we want to go. How many of you have tried and invested thousands upon thousands of dollars in your health, but you still feel like you're a far cry from where you want to be? This is way, way, way too common. And an example of one of our clients who dealt with this was Nancy from California. She was really into yoga and boot camps, but she had a nasty car accident 17 years earlier, and she had gotten into the rhythm of spending thousands and thousands of dollars each month. Each month she was spending thousands of dollars on acupuncture, chiropractic appointments, and massage before she came to Health by Ratio. And then we taught her the art of trigger point and how she could release her own knotted up tissue and not have to rely on other people, along with reconditioning her movement patterns. And we were able to save her countless amounts of money on an annual basis. But not only that, get her to her actual functional health goals. And some of that was actually teaching her, kind of like with Sydney a few slides ago, that for her, yoga and a lot of the things that she was doing in her boot camp classes, even though they're great forms of exercise and good for general fitness, they weren't balancing out her body. Even though yoga is associated with great range of motion and stretching, it wasn't customized to what her body needed. So when we were able to get her on track, she was able to save tons of money and actually get to her health goals. That's great, right? So what are some of the tools and techniques we can do to increase our own range of motion? Well, we cannot release. This is hugely important. Foam rolling and trigger pointing. Who out there has a foam roller and never uses it? I bet you there's a million. Fess up. Who's got it? But trigger point is like doing the same thing with foam rolling. You're just using lacrosse balls, a softball, maybe a peanut, which is like two lacrosse balls connected together. It's amazing in and around the spine. I'm seeing a bunch of people out there saying, yeah, I got a foam roller collecting cobwebs. Then you can also stretch. You can, if you do it the right way, stretching is a great way to increase your range of motion, especially when you pair it up with not releasing. Or you can do what's called voodoo band compression. Voodoo band flossing was made famous by Kelly Starrett. We use it in the Health by Ratio program. It involves high levels of compression to help your range of motion. It's amazing. The results are so great that that's why it's called voodoo, because it feels like you're doing voodoo on your body to get it to move the way it does. But we're going to be touching on that. We won't be touching on voodoo as much because it needs its own lesson to really learn how to do it appropriately. But then movement, that's probably the biggest factor, is actually learning how to correctly move in ranges of motion will increase your range of motion. And we're going to be covering that extensively in secret number 3. So this is one of my favorite quotes from Katie Bowman, who I actually quoted earlier. She is a biomechanist. She wrote Move Your DNA. And one of her quotes I steal all the time is, trying to stretch a muscle with knotted fascia is like trying to stretch a cotton shirt with swabs of dried paint on it. So fascia is this microscopic interconnected web that runs all through your body. It's this very dense substance. It's actually the second densest substance in your body next to bone. If you've ever had like a steak or chicken and you've cut into it, and as you separated it, there was kind of that white webbing in it, that's fascia, and we have it all throughout our body, and it gets really gunked up and knotted up. When you've heard like, oh, you got scar tissue buildup around an injury, that's fascia that's knotted up in a funky way in and around an old injury. And so fascia, because it's so dense and tough, if you try to stretch out muscle tissue without actually addressing your fascia knot, it's the same idea as like comparing stretching a shirt that has nothing on it, it has a certain amount of elasticity, to stretching a shirt that has a bunch of paint spots on it, where the fabric that has the paint spots is locked in place. It's not going anywhere. It's all the other fabric that's trying to overstretch. So when you're trying to manipulate your range of motion through just stretching and not addressing fascia knots, and we all have fascia knots, especially those of us that have been dealing with injuries. Trust me on that. We all have knots all over the place. Just think about how good a sports massage feels for us. Then when we try to stretch it, we're not really giving our bodies the benefits that it should be. So 50% of our patients' and clients' success comes from a proper mobility plan. So prioritizing specific knotted up tissues and carefully chosen stretches to improve range of motion. We're not just stretching out everything or foam rolling and not releasing every component of the body. We need to prioritize the areas that are pulling us out of alignment and then mobilize them and get them gliding and moving fluidly so that they're not pulling our skeletal system out of place. But if we don't release the knotted up tissue ourselves and we rely on somebody else, we have a few ramifications to this. One, the cost is astronomical. We already went over the cost of recurring treatments get really expensive. Or if we don't do consistent treatments all the time, we stay in pain. And like doing a treatment here and there or a procedure here and there, stretching and foam rolling for 10-15 minutes a day really isn't enough. It keeps us in our chronic pains. And then obviously we stay in those chronic pains and injury cycles long enough, our health, fitness, and athleticism decline. So an example, a case study of one of our clients, Casey, the professional tennis player that we touched on earlier, was initially dealing with Achilles injuries, hip problems, rotator cuff and elbow injuries as well. And that was why she was on the verge of retiring from the sport that she loved. And when we assessed her, we saw that her ankle mobility was really poor, her hip mobility was really poor, her thoracic mobility was really poor, and this was impacting all of her major movement patterns. So we got started, and after 12 weeks of her program and really focusing on teaching her how to rely on herself for releasing her own knots and increasing her range of motion as opposed to all those third parties that she was working with, she was able to get perfect range of motion scores and all of her injuries and pains healed. And by the next season, she had massively improved balance and power that extended her career for 3 more seasons. And like I said earlier, and she finished her career in the highest ranking that ever before. So her health and fitness skyrocketed, and now she's still able to consistently play tennis, and she loves it. And so all of this stemmed from training her ranges of motion by herself as opposed to always relying on somebody else. So I want you to ask yourself, how many areas do you consistently stretch each week? And of those areas, how many of those do you also not release? Meaning you're also foam rolling or trigger pointing them so that you're getting the benefits of the stretching by mobilizing and releasing those knotted up tissues. Or are you always relying on somebody else for this? Well, again, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. If your answer is, well, I'm only stretching, I'm not really not releasing, or I'm going to regular treatments, but I'm not really doing anything myself, then the benefits to this are, look, there's an avenue or options that you haven't traveled down yet, that you haven't tried out before, that can help help you get into the right direction and at the same time save you a bunch of money like Nancy did. And the same thing for Casey with all of the therapists that she was working with in and around her tennis career. So now we're on to my favorite of our 3 secrets. This one, if the first 50% is about getting your mobility, the second 50% is reconditioning your body now how to move with this new range of motion. So we want to reteach your body, aka your central nervous system, how to move with balance and stability in full ranges of motion. It's the most important key to your body's physical health. It's what so many people are missing. So I'm really excited to get into this. So your central nervous system controls everything. Every movement, position, breath you take is dictated by your central nervous system. So meaning all of your movement patterns. And passive therapies do not address your central nervous system. They're passive. You're just laying there letting someone massage you or put you through ranges of motion or adjust your skeletal system or give you dry needling. Nothing is involving recruitment of your central nervous system. And also stretching and myofascial release, like the not releasing techniques that we just talked about in secret number 2, they also don't address your central nervous system, hence why they're only half of the equation. And if we don't impact the way your body moves, if you get this great sports massage, or you have the best range of motion session with your physical therapist, or you stretch for the next 30 minutes, and then you go sit in a car for a half an hour the same way to get to work, and then you sit at your desk the same way, or you go for a run for 5 miles with the same running gait as you were before, because you've made no adjustments to the central nervous system, your body's still moving, sitting, standing the same way it was before, you end up re-pulling yourself right back out of alignment. And that's why we have so many recurring injuries across the board. And also surgeries, supplements, medications, braces, new shoes. How many here are runners on this webinar? I see, okay, I see Kara, I see Bill, got it. You're ultra marathoner, nice. That's pretty impressive. Robert, I got you. I see Christine. Okay, we got quite a few runners on there. If I had $1 for every time I heard a runner say, "Man, it's just my shoes," I would be a very rich man. If that's your thought process, I don't want to embarrass you or completely poo-poo you or anything like that. Like, shoes can make a bit of an impact, but it's not like wearing your shoes isn't going to all of a sudden align the central nervous system, and now your feet and your knees and your hips and your back and your shoulders and your neck are all of a sudden perfect. That's not how it works. So your shoes are very rarely the problem, and if they are the problem, they are a minor problem, not the major problem. These things all don't impact the central nervous system themselves. And imbalanced movement is the number one reason injuries occur in the first place, or if you happen to have like those 1% of injuries that occur from like someone else hitting you or you getting into a massive car accident or something along those lines, then they're the reason why those injuries are lingering and keeping you from healing the way you want. Remember Robert Griffin III with all of his imbalances from head to toe? Those were the root causes of all the cascade of injuries that he experienced throughout his career. And so an example of one of our clients that dealt with this was Claire from California, who was a high school volleyball player when we started working with her going into her senior season, who almost missed her senior year after going through surgery for her knee, thinking that she had a meniscus tear. When they got in, they didn't think that they couldn't find any significant tearing. So then she went to physical therapy to do treatment all around her knee, and they couldn't solve it. Like she was cleared from physical therapy because it was general PT, and she had normal range of motion. But when she started practicing again, getting ready for her senior year, she was dealing with the same pain. And then we worked on figuring out how her body was being pulled out of alignment. We started working together. We saw that she had a few major misalignments, but one of them was that knee valgus thing that we saw, the knees collapsing in every time she jumped, similar to Kevin Durant's image when he was shooting that free throw earlier. And so we mobilized her body properly, although mobility wasn't her main challenge. She's a younger high school player. She didn't have a ton of flexibility issues. Her issue was more about the stability in the way her body moves. So we retrained her central nervous system. She was able to heal her body. She was able to get more powerful and explode to track down on balls more, because now her body was firing in alignment in functional sound motion. So every ounce of energy she was putting into the ground was propelling her in the direction that she wanted. This is why this type of program really helps athletes excel the way that they want. And she was able to play her senior year and ultimately get recruited by an Ivy League, Princeton, to play volleyball. How awesome is that? You're on the verge of missing your senior year, and instead you end up playing and getting recruited to play collegiately. That's amazing, right? So one of the main keys to retraining your central nervous system isn't just exercise, it's proprioceptive exercise. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with the term proprioceptive, it's kind of like if I pushed you and you naturally kind of rebalance your body without even thinking about it. That's proprioceptive exercise. It's putting your body in an environment where it has no choice but to correct itself and get pulled back into alignment. And so tools for success for this type of technique is your body awareness, is absolute body techniques. Resistance bands, which you're seeing in this photo here. Right now this is a very, I would say, advanced technique. This isn't something that we start most of our clients off with, but you can see I'm using a resistance band to help open up my shoulder girdle above my head. I have a band pulling my left knee forward, which is going to cause my left glute and hamstring to contract a lot more and correct an asymmetrical weight shift as I stand up from my squat pattern. And I have a third band that's wrapped around both legs. You can't really see it connected to the right leg as well, but you can kind of see it on top of my knee. It's pulling my knees inward. So this was one of the variations of what we did with Claire to correct that knee valgus, so that when she did her squats, just by fighting against the bands without her even having to think about it, her body was proprioceptively retraining her central nervous system. And then you can also use things like dumbbells, kettlebells, and other free weights. Often you don't have to use very much weight, and it's not 100% needed. It just helps with progressing certain techniques. And then suspension trainers are another great tool for this type of exercise. So that's like your TRXs and your rings. So we want to recondition each joint's mobility and alignment. So we need to look at the feet and the ankles, the knees, the hips, the lumbar, the thoracic, the shoulder girdle, the neck, each individually, make sure they all have good range of motion and they're all in alignment. And then we functionally train everything in unison. So big movement patterns, similar to this image that you're seeing here. We're doing a big movement pattern, retraining how everything is firing in unison. That's what we want to do. We're not just looking at individual pieces. We got to retrain them how to move in function. And that's going to be what really gets our body sound and prevents injuries. So going back to one of our earlier examples was Maura from Illinois, who's the runner in her 50s who had stopped for a handful of years beforehand because she was dealing with things like ankle, meniscus, injuries, shoulder impingement, neck problems. And when we analyzed her big movement patterns like the squat and the lunge and the hip hinge were all really poor, and that equated to a really bad running gait, and hence why her running was beating up her body and she was on a hiatus from it. But after 8 weeks of her program, she was stable in all of her assessments. And actually at, I think, about week 5 or 6, she felt good enough to go on her first 3-mile run, which obviously isn't very long for her. But it was a big step in the right direction for her because she felt great while she did it. And then after that 8 weeks, she's consistently felt balanced and pain-free and has been able to run 3 to 4 times a week for 30 to 60 minutes for the first time in over 5 years. So a quick check-in on this one to ask yourself for phase 3 is, do you properly warm up and activate the body every single day? And if you do, is your routine actually based around your body's deviations? So my guess is that we have kind of 2 groups in here. One, I'm probably everybody that's in this, whether you're a young athlete, an older athlete, or somewhere in between, you have a warm-up routine that you probably go through. Some of you probably take it more seriously than others. Some of you do it every single day for 30 minutes right first thing in the morning, and others might do it hit or miss a couple of times a week. But my guess is you have a routine. My question is, where did you get that routine from? Was it something that your team just taught you, you picked up over the years? Maybe you got a couple of techniques from a physical therapist, or you watched a YouTube or Facebook video. Where did you get them? Were they actually customized for you, or was it just some random stuff that you put together? Well, again, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. If your routine is kind of a random hodgepodge of things, there's some stuff that you can do specifically for your body to move it in the right direction every day, and it doesn't have to take long. 10 to 15 minutes a day is all it takes, and you can get to where you want to go. So a quick recap of these 3 secrets that we were covering today is step number 1 is we got to analyze your functional posture and movement patterns to see what exactly your body needs, what tissues are overactive and what ones have been underactive. Like, are your glutes firing the way that they should? Is your core engaged? Is your body being pulled off to the side? Do you have imbalances in ankles and hips and your shoulder girdle from one side to the other? Then based on that, we're going to create a stretch and mobility program to release those gunked up, overactive tissues pulling us out of alignment. And then finally, we're going to take that new range of motion that we created and retrain that central nervous system to be functionally sound. And when you follow these simple yet specific steps that your body needs for each joint, you're gonna build a brand new house, so to speak. So I kind of equate this as when you are getting great treatments, or you're doing really good not releasing techniques, and you're getting good mobility going, that's kind of like buying an old beat up house with terrible floors, the foundation's bad, the walls are coming down, the roof is falling apart, and we're tearing it down. We bulldoze it, we level out the land, and now we got this big empty lot of a blank canvas that we can build whatever we want on. And if we miss this last step, the most important thing of retraining our central nervous system, and we just go back to the same old ways of us moving and running and walking and throwing and twisting and grabbing and whatever it is that we do, then we end up literally rebuilding the same old crappy house over and over and over again. That's why so many of our adjustments and treatments last for a couple of days, and then we're right back to where we were before we started. So instead, when we retrain that central nervous system, it's like we build a completely new house. We have now a solid foundation and a beautiful, expansive living room, and the kitchen's all updated. And basically, your body is a completely new mechanism. So why you're here? You're probably here because you're here to fully recover from the injuries and chronic pains that you've been experiencing, and you want to feel balanced and loose and stable, mobile, healthy, and powerful, whether you're an athlete or whether you're just an active individual, but you want to do this for years and decades to come. You're probably here to get back to and excel in your favorite activities and sports. You want to have full range of motion. You want to get more powerful. You want to have faster reaction times, and you want your body to do exactly what you want your body to do, and not move in random directions and tweak and have setbacks, etc., etc. And that way, you're maximizing the abilities you already have, the strength and power and endurance that you already have right now. You just want to optimize it while staying 100% healthy. You're probably here to also get in better shape. You want to have incredible longevity into the second half of your life and enjoy the activities with your family and friends. And ultimately, you want to be in control of your health. And now I'm here to tell you guys that no matter what the reason is that you're here, what you want to achieve, you can do it with this simple framework, with these 3 secrets we talked about today. You're going to be able to fully rehab from pains and injuries and prevent 99% of future injuries. And I don't say 100% because there's certain things that can happen to you that are out of your control, but at the bare minimum, it's going to give you the ability to, after those freak accidents occur, for you to still be able to move your body right back on track and get healthy again, as opposed to letting it linger and impact you for the rest of your life. And then you're going to be able to maximize your balance and your strength and your power, so you can be as good as you want at the activities that you love to do and live the active and fit life that you love. And this is just like Maura and her husband Ted, and Michael and Sydney and Claire and Nancy and Casey and myself, and literally thousands of other clients just like you. So, let me ask you a question. Do you guys want some help with this? Would you like help from my team and I, so you can figure out what's actually out of alignment? We talked about all these things, but do you feel confident that you can self-assess right now? I know that you can ultimately, but in this moment right now, could you assess your imbalances? Probably not. Could you create a game plan of how to functionally correct it, even if you could? Also, I would take an educated guess, probably not. And because each individual has their own specific imbalances and movement patterns, I can't give you guys the one-size-fits-all program. If anyone talks to you about a one-size-fits-all program to cure back pain or recover from an ACL tear or recover from rotator cuff injuries, that's BS, because a rotator cuff injury could come from the thoracic spine, it could come from the elbow, it could come from the shoulder itself, or it could be literally an imbalance that's happening in the feet. There's all kinds of things that could be causing that, and it's dependent on each individual. So, again, do you guys want some actual one-on-one help from myself and my team? And did I mention that help is free? So, is there anyone here that would like that? Yeah, I see you, Laura. Okay. Julia, I got you. Yep, I see you, Mike. You'd like some help with this? My pleasure. I'd love to. Eric, I got you. Matt, perfect. Okay, let me talk to you guys about this free offer that I hinted at the beginning. We're offering a free mobility consultation call to every last one of you. This is like a free 30 to 45 minute consultation with an amazing functional physical therapist and corrective exercise specialist. I think we could all pretty much use that, right? I mean, what is the worst that could happen in a call like this? You spend 30 minutes on a call that gives you some great insights to what's going on in your body and the next step to take. Or best case, you find a program that's going to help you literally live the active life you love and give you control over your health and in the process, save you thousands in medical costs year after year. I don't think you got much to lose there. Maybe a little bit of your time, but I think that's doable. 30 minutes isn't so much. So, you now have a choice. You can think, this isn't for me. I could really only learn from someone in person probably. And by the way, you'd be surprised how sophisticated yet easy this program is to execute, even with only online video chats and our video modules that we do. But that's neither here nor there. Or this program is going to be way too expensive. Why even waste my time with it? So, and I hear you. I would appreciate that. If you guys have gotten quoted on other programs, you probably think like, man, this sounds great, but it's probably like $5 to 10 grand, and I'm not there. It's not, by the way. And nearly all of our clients recuperate their investment within 1 to 6 months in medical expenses that they save. Or this isn't for me because you can really just insert any reason. And that's fine. You're more than welcome to keep trying different variations of the same tactics you've tried before. Or for the others out there that want to potentially achieve and maintain their functional health naturally, you have a literally risk-free option with the exception of, like I said, 30 minutes of your time. And this is going to give you some specific information on a unique program that could let you achieve your health goals once and for all. So this kind of sounds too good to be true, right? I get it, but I promise you it isn't. This is what we do. So how we are going to help is we're going to review your injury and pain history. We want to understand where you're coming from. And then we want to also get a game plan for what you're looking to achieve. We want to make sure that it's relatively realistic. If you're 50 and had a series of the last 3 decades of chronic pains and your goal is to become the next star NFL quarterback, we probably aren't the program for you. I don't know if there is a program for you, but that's my point. We want to make sure that we understand what you're looking to achieve, where you're coming from, and then we're going to help you create a reconditioning plan for you to achieve those goals on this call. So who is this call actually for? Because it's not for everybody. This call is for the motivated and coachable, the people that are willing to problem solve and get creative in getting to their goals. This call is for active individuals wanting to fully recover from and prevent injuries. Maybe you're not as active as you want to be, but that's your natural state. You want to be enjoying life. And so great, this call is for you. This is anyone obsessed with gaining control of their health for life. So you're into longevity and biohacking and you want to be able to be in control in your day-to-day health. Awesome. We can't wait to connect with you. And also, this is for competitive athletes wanting to maximize your athleticism, improve your running, and get more powerful and explosive, but staying healthy season in and season out. Amazing. We can't wait to connect with you. Now note, this call is not for the quote-unquote debilitated. So if you just ruptured your Achilles yesterday or fully tore your ACL and MCL a week ago and you're waiting on surgery and you're bedridden right now, this call isn't really for you right now. I would love to touch base. I would still like for you to book a call or reach out to us because I'd like to talk to you about how we can help you in your recovery process down the road. But right now, your body's just not ready for some of the movement patterns that we would be encouraging you to do. So might not be for you right now, but put it on the back burner and reach out in the meantime because we'd still love to touch base. And also, this call is not for the victims. So I'm guessing we've all had some crazy war stories. Like you've probably been through the ringer, right? With the injuries that you've experienced, you could probably go on for hours on all of those. I don't want to spend this entire call just complaining about old battle scars. What I want to do is I want to touch base on that. I want to understand where you're coming from. I want to get the overview of your history, but then I want to spend the majority of the call on moving you in the right direction toward your goal. So going over the actual solutions. And if that wasn't enough, like I said, we have a second bonus for you guys today. It's a follow-up free video conference call. So for all of you guys that are booking your calls right now, and I see quite a few coming in right now, which I can't wait to connect with you guys. If we feel like we're a potential good fit for you and we can really give you some good, valuable information, we're going to do a follow-up call with you guys and actually connect with you over video chat where we can test you and watch you move and actually give you specific feedback on your imbalances so we can go over the right plan to recondition your body. Now, again, these calls aren't necessarily designed to be sales calls. We're designed to just give you great information, and if it ends up working out that we're a good fit for each other, great. If not, we gave you some really good, useful info on your body in particular. So now, who out there is at a point where you're wondering, this sounds way too good to be true. What's the catch? Why the heck are these guys doing this? And I totally appreciate that question. And so here are our answers. Honestly, there is no catch. This is what we do. We've been really fortunate with our success as a business. And so we actually enjoy giving back, and specifically because we know it's incredibly hard to find functional rehab and corrective exercise programs out there. And that's why so many of us are staying in chronic injury and pain cycles every year. And so we want to help you guys, and ultimately, if it works out that we're a good fit for each other, awesome. I'm going to be honest. That's great. We can't wait to bring you on board and help you get to where you want to go. But truly, if we're not a fit for each other, that's totally fine. We're not going to talk your ear off and waste your time with the big sales process. We're honestly just here to help and point you in the right direction. And what others have said about this call. So I just pulled these off of our Facebook page really quick, and these are some reviews from people that, some were people that just did the call, and some were people that actually signed up for our program, but you can get a feel for what others have actually said about it. We've been doing, like I said, not only this webinar hundreds of times, but we've done hundreds upon hundreds of these consultation calls. And again, we have yet to get a bad review from it. Every single person walks away feeling like they spent a really valuable amount of time with us to get some great insights as to what's going on with their body. So guys, if you haven't already clicked on that link to book your call, here's what you're going to expect. And I think I saw Julia and Brian. I see, who else do we got, Gordon, that signed up? We got Mark. I see Katie signed up. I see Marie and Dawn and Marianne. That's awesome. We can't wait to connect with you guys. And look, when you guys click on this link, it's really simple. You're going to get taken to a screen where you just select your time zone. Then you're going to pick the date and time that works best for your schedule. And then the last step is just filling out a really quick questionnaire so we know what direction to take this call. So click on that link, guys. I can't recommend this enough. We're going to give you some great information to getting to your goals. And guys, if you weren't able to click on that link directly, if there was some issue with the button for you, here's the direct link to our calendar. It's go.oncehub.com/HBR call, so you can get to our calendar directly. And now we're going to get into a couple of quick Q&As that we collected ahead of the call, and Gordon has been also, I think at the beginning we got some questions that were put in the box, and he added them on to our slides here at the last second. So our first Q&A comes from Brian, and it was, how does our program, Health by Ratio, work online? I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, Brian, because we really only talk to people about our program when we are 100% confident we can get them to their goals. But essentially, we do a combination of video chats where we can study the way people move, and then we create customized programs for them that coincide with our really easy to follow step-by-step video modules on our members only site. So we write out a program, direct them to the member site on how to do it. We connect with them through more video chats and phone calls to also support and teach them the program and make sure they're doing it the right way. And then we do weekly group Q&A calls for everyone that's in the program. And then we have world-class support like Gordon, who's helping me here, and the rest of our staff do a great job at keeping in touch with people, whether it's through video chat apps like Marco Polo or text messaging or email. So we kind of use a little bit of everything to give as best support and execution of the program as absolutely possible. The next Q&A, this is from Kate. Can a program like this help with multiple injuries? Absolutely. That's a great question. We do not just isolate in on one area of the body. The whole point of working on the entire body's movement patterns and balances of the entire kinetic chain is so that we can get the entire thing functionally healthy. So absolutely, we specialize in that. That's what we want to do, is not just correct like the main site of the pain, but also be able to correct any and all injuries that have been bothering them. Hence why some of those testimonials that we went over had people that were dealing with multiple pains and injuries. The next one, this one, I think Gordon and I threw this in there before we even got, this is just a common question we get all the time from no one in particular. What is your favorite exercise for, and then insert your injury? Like, what's your favorite exercise to recover from an ACL injury or your back pain or rotator cuff and stuff like that? And you guys have probably gotten the vibe from this answer already through the masterclass so far. But there really isn't an answer for this. Like, if you have knee valgus, like if you got a knee injury and it's due and your knees are always caving in, like we talked about with Kevin Durant and Claire and stuff like that, then like for instance, I might tell you that one of the staples you need to do are lateral band walks. Like you need to be fighting against a band that's pulling your knees inward, so you strengthen up your glutes to fight that tendency to go inward. But that's not going to fix any one person. That's going to be one technique of dozens that we would have somebody do. And the rest of the techniques would be dependent on what's going on in each individual. So what's their ankle mobility like and their hips like, and then what's going on in their core and their thoracic and shoulder girdle. And each person has a totally different complex. So there is no one exercise that's best for a particular injury. And so because of that, I can't really answer this question. But we like to cover it anyways since we get it so often. Oh, and our next question is, how much does the program cost? And this was asked from Greg, and this is a great question that we get all the time. And honestly, it depends on each individual. We customize our programs dependent on what our clients' needs are. Not everybody needs physical therapy and corrective exercise programs and nutritional coaching. Some people need all three to get to where they want to go. And some people need just a little bit of guidance, and some people need like one-on-one accountability support and meetup times for them to execute their program. So because of that, we have multiple tiers of our program, and on our calls, if we feel like we're both a good fit for each other, we'll give you a specific breakdown of what the investment's going to look like for you. What I can can say though is our average client recuperates their investment within 1 to 6 months of starting their program, just depending on what their regular medical expenses are. And that's just from the savings that they gain. And then obviously that pays for itself time and time again as they continue to maintain their health. So that hopefully answers your question, Greg. Laura asks, what is the what is the difference between you and physical therapy? I'm assuming that's a typo on Gordon's fault, not you, Laura. But what is the difference between you and physical therapy? That's a great question. So I should say there isn't a huge difference in general because we actually do physical therapy. Like we have our physical therapist, Dr. Kim, who works with our athletes and active individuals in the beginning phases of their program to really make sure that we address injuries and lingering pains to correct them as soon as humanly possible. But I would say the big difference between the style of physical therapy that we incorporate in our program versus what most people are exposed to is, we kind of talked about this earlier, is that general PT often isolates around a specific injury. So if you come in with an ACL tear and you just finished surgery on it, they're going to have a certain protocol to get your range of motion back to normal around your knee. And that's absolutely a necessity, but that's kind of like the first phase to getting back to recovery. Like it's a big difference between like getting cleared by your PT because you have a certain range of motion in your knee and you can do 10 step-ups on a 12-inch box. That's all fine and dandy and you get the quote-unquote cleared stamp of approval. But there's a big difference between stepping up onto a box 10 times and going out onto the basketball court and dunking again, or running for 10 plus miles kind of thing. So they're like, that's almost like phase one to just get you to normal like baseline function. And then what we do is take that individual and take them back to full functional health. So we're working more on not just the specific knee injury, but looking at what happened in the ankle and the hips and the core and what was either compensating or out of balance before the injury occurred, or how is the body now compensating and out of balance due to the injury as a byproduct in the recovery process. And we got to go about correcting the entire body's movement pattern. So we are a bit more holistic and we're looking at the entire system versus most general PT is going to be more specific to whatever your prescription was, if that makes sense. And guys, I think that's our main, those were our main questions for today and our masterclass. I hope you guys got a lot of value from this. I know that we busted a lot of beliefs and we talked about a lot of new concepts on this one. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys, I've been seeing now, we have dozens of people right now that have been booking their call. That's amazing. I hope if you haven't already, do so. Take advantage of this free resource. It's invaluable. Everyone has loved it. That's done these calls. Literally, like I said, we have not gotten a bad review on them. We love connecting with you guys and helping you to the best of our abilities. And hey, if we end up working together, even better. But if not, we're happy to help. So outside of that, this is again that link to our calendar, go.oncehub.com/HBR call, or you can click the button that's popped up around this screen by now and schedule the time that works best for you. And we can't wait to help you. And if you have any additional questions, you're more than welcome to type them into that chat box. Like I said before we got started, they will get emailed to us. So even if you're watching a replay of this later, you can always submit that question and we'll just respond to you via email. So outside of that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and we will talk to you soon.